Apple just released Final Cut Camera App. It is a pro camera app for iPhone and it allows you to do menu control, and the flagship function is that you can do live multicam through the Final Cut Pro on iPad. And now here's the question. What if I'm just a regular user who doesn't have an iPad and never does live multicam? I just love shooting videos and capturing some moments in my daily life. Yeah, that user is me. So in this case, is it still worth it to use this Final Cut camera instead of the stock camera or other camera apps? After playing with it for a whole day, I feel like, yes, it is worth it. I can see myself keep using that in the future. If you want to know the reason, keep watching, I will explain. Now maybe we can do a walkthrough of this new camera app. Let's open it. And you can see the interface. It's very clean. You can tell it's an app made by Apple. Let's look at the left side first. On the bottom, you can see this button. It's for the live multicam. I'm not going to talk about that since I don't have iPad. On the right a little bit, you can see how much storage you have left on your phone and your battery level. The storage actually I think is really nice because no matter you are shooting ProRes or HEVC, this is always available. The stock camera app, it only shows you when you are shooting ProRes. Go above a little bit, you can see all the switcher for your codecs, color, dynamic range, resolution, frame rate, something like that. And here's the deal. You are getting the exact same configuration with Apple's stock camera app. You can only shoot Apple log in ProRes. You cannot do that in HEVC. So if you want to shoot HEVC Apple log, you still need to use Blackmagic Camera App or something else. And also for Apple ProRes in 60 FPS, you still need to shoot that into your external storage. You cannot shoot that directly onto your phone. So that's the same with the stock camera app. But I do kind of like this switcher because you can directly choose whatever the setting you want. In the stock camera app, in the video mode, if you want to choose frame rate, you have to circle between 24, 30, 60. You have to loop in that order. But now you can just directly jump to whatever you need. And you might not see slow-mo over here, but this camera app does capture slow-mo. The only thing is, since it can do the exact same thing with the stock camera app, I'm using iPhone 15 Pro Max. In my case, I can only record slow-mo in HEVC, SDR, and 1080 resolution. So I have to make sure I'm on all those settings, and then I go to the frame rate, I'm gonna see 120 and 240. So that's something I feel like it's a little bit hard to navigate. Yeah, on top you can see you have the audio meter over here and then the setting button. We'll go to the setting button a little bit later. Let's go to the right side. On the bottom you can see there's a zoom tracker over here. This is digital zoom, but after playing around with it a little bit, I kind of like it because the zoom is very smooth. It's also working while you're recording videos. If you have used the zoom in the stock camera app or the Blackmagic Camera app, you can tell that they don't feel very smooth. But over here, it gives you a very smooth zoom in and zoom out. Of course, don't punch in too much since it's digital. And then you can see here are the buttons to switch between your lenses, ultra wide, main lens, and your telephoto. Over here, we need to know that you cannot switch lenses after you hit record. So you have to choose the lens you want to use and just keep using that. If we hit this arrow button, you can change your white balance, and it also provides you a couple presets. And then this is the exposure. You can also switch to manual, and then you can change your ISO or shutter speed. Only shutter speed, not shutter angle. Here's your manual focus. Yeah, it works really well. And then you can lock your screen orientation, left, right, and portrait. On the right, you can go to your front camera. Hi. Now let's go to the setting and see what's going on. This is a very short setting menu, and I love it because if you go to Blackmagic Camera App, you can tell this is definitely a professional camera app, but for a regular user, it is definitely overwhelming. So it's nice to see a short setting menu over here. Here are the same thing. You can change your codec format, color dynamic range, and stabilization. For me, when I first open the app, the stabilization is off on default. So double check your stabilization setting after you install the app. But if you are using a gimbal or if you're on a tripod, you can just turn it off. And then you're going to have a slightly wider image. You are not going to get the cropping from the stabilization. Over the tools, you can turn on grid overlay, something like this. And you can turn on aspect ratio guide. For some reason, they provide square and 4:3. I feel like there are not that many people need those two. I wish they could provide 2:1, 2:3:5, 2:3:9, something like that. And then you can turn on your overexposure indicator, your zebra, as well as your focus peaking. I really love to see those two features over here, especially when you are shooting log or the gray image. It's really hard to tell whether you are in focus or not. And then audio, over here, you can choose your external microphone, like your USB-C microphone or something like that. Okay, so now let's try to record something. While you're recording, you can do the digital zoom, as I mentioned earlier, and you cannot switch lenses, as I also mentioned earlier. You can change your white balance, your exposure, and your menu focus. Okay, stop recording. Let's go to the gallery. The media you shoot will not be saved to your Photos app. So you have to view your media over here inside the app, or you can go to your Files app on your phone, and then you'll see all your footage over there. Okay, that's it. So that's basically everything you can do in the Final Cut Camera app. Now let's talk about why I think it's still worth it to use it, even though I don't have an iPad. To me, I feel like the great thing about this app is that it keeps the interface very clean and intuitive, but it adds a little bit more pro functions that I always wish I could have in the stock camera app, like the menu focus. When you are shooting some close up, for example, I'm shooting a close up of a flower and then I want to change back to the background. In the stock camera app, I have to point the screen. It's like just suddenly change focus. Now I can finally do that smoothly. And the other good thing I would say is the consistency. Since this is an app made by Apple, after testing it out, I feel like it's giving me the exact same look and image quality with the stock camera app. So if switching between those two camera apps, I will still get the same consistent look. I also really like that it's giving me the native Apple stabilization. I know Blackmagic Camera App, there are so many great functions and I really want to keep using, but for some reason I always feel like the stabilization is a little bit for some reason, I always feel like Apple's stock camera, the stabilization works for me a little bit better. And that's the biggest reason I'm still using the stock camera app. But now I'm happy to use the Final Cut Camera app since it gives me the same great stabilization. So since there are still a lot of things Final Cut Camera cannot do, like it cannot shoot epilogue in HEVC and it cannot display LUTs, so you are always seeing the gray washout log image while you are monitoring. Right, in that case, why don't I use Blackmagic Camera app since they're all free and you can do everything you want over there? Yeah, that's a good question. To me, I kind of feel like it might relate it to a kind of situation you're in. So for me, I don't really do professional videography and I just like to shoot videos for fun. For this type of regular users, the Blackmagic Camera app, like all those settings and the interface, it might feels a little bit overwhelming. The Final Cut Camera app, it really feels like a pro version or like a pro mode of the stock iOS camera. Yeah, there are not too many buttons and everything. It's just very easy to understand. So as long as you know you don't really need those functions that only Blackmagic or other third-party camera apps gonna provide, you'll be fine with this Final Cut camera. You're getting the same easy interface, but you are having more manual control. At the same time, I want to remind you that there's still something you can do in the stock camera app, but you cannot do here. For example, there's no cinematic mode or action mode. So if you need to do that, you'll have to go back to the stock camera app. And also, as I mentioned earlier, you cannot switch between your lenses while recording. Those limitations, it actually makes sense to me because I feel like the Final Cut camera, it kind of gives you a feeling of you are using a proper video camera instead of like a smartphone. So professional camera, you are not gonna switch lenses while recording, right? And there's also a thing I noticed is that right now I'm using the iOS 18 beta on my phone, and actually it has a really nice feature that I've been waiting forever. Now you can listen to music or just playing whatever audio in the background while you are recording video. Because of this, I can finally, while I'm walking around on the street, recording some like beauty shots, and then I can keep my music playing over my AirPods. That's something I really like about iOS 18. But Final Cut Camera doesn't support that at this point. So your music is still gonna pause while you are recording video. Yeah, so hopefully that's something they can consider. But at this point, I kind of feel like Apple is really trying to stop adding more features to whatever the apps they make. I can see that in recent years, they have already added many new features to their apps. For example, the stock camera app, if we go to the setting, you can see that's a long setting list. There are so many things going on. Action mode, lower light, those are so specific. Yeah, so they really have a lot of options for you to change. But I feel like they are trying to hide all those functions because they don't want to confuse regular user. They want to keep their interface as clean as possible. But honestly, to me, the stock camera right now is already start getting confusing. For example, on top, you have the exposure, ProRes, action mode, resolution, frame rate. I know they put over there so it's easier to reach. You can change things quickly. But if you click the arrow or you swipe up, you are getting the similar options here, like exposure, ProRes, action mode, also the flashlight. I mean, technically, you can switch those 4 buttons to the manual switch buttons in the Final Cut Camera app, right? So now you have the Pro mode. Nah, I don't know. I'm not engineer or like UX designer. They might have their reason to do all that. Compare with the stock camera 5 years ago, there's already a lot more going on over here. So I understand why they're always so slowly adding new features. Okay, now I want to talk about 2 things that are bothering me a little bit. So the first thing is that if we go to the manual control, like for example, exposure or focus, this auto or manual indicator is a little bit confusing to me. I'm not sure which mode I'm currently on. Should I press it to change to manual or I'm currently on manual? I'm not sure. But in the Blackmagic Camera app, it has a different kind of design. Like it has the blue indicator showing you whether you are on auto or manual. Yeah, so I wish that's something they could make changes in later versions. And the second thing is about recording video to your external storage. So now I have my external SSD connected to my phone and I open the app. This is actually a nice thing. Now it's showing you that you are recording to your external drive, and you can also switch back to your device. So you can have your SSD connected, but still record to your phone. So my issue is now seems like I was not able to record video onto my external storage. It's just stuck at 0. If I go to my Files app, it's also not showing up over there. Actually, I'm wondering if that's related to my iOS 18 beta. I was being curious. I went to my phone setting and I was looking at the privacy and security, and over files and folders. For some reason, there are two Final Cut Camera apps showing up. One is on, one is off, and seems like I cannot turn the second on. And if I turn the first one off, one of them suddenly disappeared. Yeah, it's just acting weird at this point. So I guess there's some sort of file permission issue going on over here. I'm sure they will have this fixed in the future. Okay, so I kind of feel like for our regular users, this Final Cut Camera app kind of act like a supplement or an extension of the stock iOS camera. So when should you use the stock camera app and when should you use Final Cut Camera? After playing around with it, I kind of feel like if you are in a more managed situation, the Final Cut Camera will help you a lot. For example, you are shooting an interview or like a talking head video, or you are shooting some B-rolls that have already been designed, or you are shooting some sceneries. Yeah, it's nice to use this Final Cut Camera because you can do all the precise manual adjustment. But if you are in a very casual, random, daily situation, for example, you are making videos for your kids, or you are shooting your pets, or you are at the zoo and you are capturing animals. In those kind of situation, I would say the stock camera app would still be your best choice because it's designed to capture whatever you need quickly. You can switch between wide angle, normal, and telephoto while you're recording. Of course, you're going to tell because it's not that smooth while transitioning, but to get whatever you need is more important in this case. And also, if you need to switch between different modes quickly, for example, the action mode, cinematic mode, slow-mo, or like even use your flashlight, the stock camera app is still the quickest one to do all of that. Okay, that's all for today. Since this Final Cut camera is free and you don't need an iPad or a Final Cut Pro for iPad subscription to use it, why not just go download it today and try out by yourself? See if those pro functions gonna help you a little bit. Personally, I would love to keep using it and try to shoot more videos with it. Okay, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to watch more tech-related videos or cell phone cinematography content, feel free to subscribe. Now maybe it's time to check out some videos I shot on this phone. I'll see you next time.